Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Amanda Taylor, Assistant Vice President for Civic and Global Engagement here at AASCU.
And I'm Jacqueline Jones, the Assistant Vice President for Student Success here at AASCU.
We are so delighted about the topic of this plenary today, which really highlights how we at AASCU understand that leadership for democracy and student success are not separate priorities, but instead they are deeply interconnected. Through the American Democracy Project, AASCU has long championed the development of informed, engaged global citizens, and that work reinforces our commitment through SSEI to helping every student thrive, graduate, and lead with purpose. We know that this group of panelists, who are student-focused leaders of AASCU's American Democracy Project and student leaders of AASCU's American Democracy Project, will highlight how the success of students and the health of our democracy depend on one another.
At AASCU, we know that student success far extends beyond retention and graduation rates. Student success means preparing students to engage thoughtfully with their communities, navigate complex societal challenges, and contribute meaningfully to our democracy and workforce. That belief is reflected not only in the work of SSEI and the American Democracy Project, but also through our participation in the Higher Endeavor ecosystem, a national effort focused on advancing equitable, data-informed institutional transformation. Through this work, institutions are strengthening their capacity to improve student outcomes, close equity gaps, and create the conditions for all students to succeed. AASCU is grateful for the collaborative partnership we have with Complete College America as part of this work. Together, we share a commitment to helping institutions transform systems, improve outcomes, and ensure that students are equipped not only to earn degrees, but also to become engaged citizens and leaders. It is especially fitting, therefore, that today's conversation will be moderated by a leader whose career has been dedicated to advancing institutional transformation and student success.
We are pleased to welcome Dr. Nia Haydel, Vice President for Institutional Transformation and Scaling at Complete College America.
In this role, Dr. Haydel leads national efforts that partner with colleges and universities to implement innovative, data-informed strategies that improve equitable student outcomes and support large-scale institutional transformation. Throughout her distinguished career, she has served students and institutions in a variety of leadership roles across academic affairs, enrollment management, and student affairs, bringing more than 2 decades of experience advancing student success.
And we're proud to call her a valued partner, colleague, and friend of AASCU.
Please join me and Dr. Taylor in welcoming Dr. Nia Haydel, who will moderate our closing plenary session, Leading for Democracy on America's Campuses, a conversation. Dr. Haydel, the stage is yours.
Welcome to the Voices for Justice podcast, part of the Higher Endeavor Network's Equity and Racial Justice Learning Track. This podcast seeks to enhance equity-mindedness through conversations that explore critical issues and highlight asset-based narratives from practitioners across higher education. Today, we have a special episode for you, recorded live from the American Association of State Colleges and Universities Summer Meeting in New Orleans. I'm pleased to introduce your moderator, Dr. Nia Woods Haydel, who will be leading today's conversation. Let's get started.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Let me just start there. As all of you know and have been discussing this week, higher education is facing unprecedented challenges across multiple fronts. Questions of value, challenges to free speech and academic freedom, shifting political landscapes, and policy requirements, to name a few. Each of these can have an impact on the campus culture and student experience. There's a lot happening. It can be overwhelming. Well, today's panel invites us to see ourselves as co-owners of democracy's future on our campuses, not as a separate civic add-on, but as the very foundation for student thriving. Drawing on over 20 years of American Democracy Project work, our panelists We'll explore leadership, student voice, and what's possible when we build democracy together. So if you have not taken the time to become familiar with the project, like the American Democracy Project, I strongly encourage you to like really dig in, because if you take time, I was so impressed by the depth and breadth of this work. So if you take time to learn more about this transformative initiative, it will help you with your work. So that's my shameless plug that I added at the last minute, but it's worth it. And so now we're going to begin with bios of our panelists, so you can know who is joining this conversation today. So I'm going to invite them to come up as I introduce them. The first is Dr. Jill Arensdorf, and I am not reading the bio that's in the app, because you can do that on your own. We're all very educated. This is just so you can get to know like the spirit of who they are. So Dr. Jill Arensdorf serves as the provost and vice president for academic affairs, as well as a professor in the leadership program in the School of Criminal Justice, Leadership and Sociology at Fort Hays State University in Hays, Kansas. Her career is a testament to her passion for teaching, civic learning, and community service. She commits her time to assisting students in developing the skills necessary to be engaged citizen, and she still finds time to be active in her local community, role modeling the lessons she teaches to her students. So she's the epitome of moving from theory to practice. Then we have Mr. Isaac Hargett. He is a junior leader and a leader at Fort Hays State University, studying history and English with a minor in political science. To be specific, he studies the cultural history and literature of the 19th century Atlantic world. He is an exceptionally active student, participating in Honors College, Young Democrats, Model UN, and Sigma Tau Delta. He is also working with the American Democracy Project as a student coordinator. You can see from his involvement that he recognizes the importance of being involved in campus life and is doing his part to engage other students to share their energy with the larger campus community. Then we're going to bring on Dr. Dimetri, who is the provost and vice president for academic affairs at Arensdorf State University in St. Louis, Missouri. She is also a recipient of the AASCU Civic Engagement Award for provosts. At Arensdorf, she champions the institution's academic mission and the transformative power of higher education. Her perspective on education is shaped not only by the role she has held on campus as a faculty member and dean, but her early career in the public school system. She is known for championing collaboration with both internal and external stakeholders to achieve institutional excellence and promote student success. And she can be counted on as a trusted partner in and advocate for efforts supporting and promoting student success and empowerment. So then now we're going to bring on, we have a good panel, lots of people. Dr. Clarenda Phillips, who is the provost, vice president for academic affairs, and professor of sociology at Missouri State University in Springfield, Missouri. She has worked at various minority-serving institutions in roles promoting the diversification of STEM faculty and creating pathways through postdoctoral studies. She has focused her teaching and research on the intersectionality of race, gender, and class, and the sociology of mental health. So all of which has positioned her to foster the conditions that enable students to thrive and become successful contributors to the communities in which they reside. Her dedication to students, faculty, and staff can be witnessed by her steadfast support to student success initiatives that extend to all areas of the campus community. And last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Sterhlyng Adkins-Dutro, who is a junior studying business management at Missouri State University. He is currently president of Bears Lead, a university ambassador, a member of Student Government Association, and in the Society for Human Resource Management. He has demonstrated a high level of commitment to developing and empowering emergent student leaders through his various campus roles. He works to encourage his peers to be involved and to empower them to use their voices to advocate for causes on campus that are important to them. So if you can please welcome our panelists. We have lots to talk about, so we're going to jump in and move quickly. So our conversation today is really focused on the critical work that is being done by you and others across the nation as it relates to democracy and education. So AASCU has been a leader in this space for over 20 years, and as we begin this conversation, I have two questions for you all that I would ask each of you all to share your thoughts on. The first is, why do you believe a conversation focused on democracy in higher education is important in this particular moment? And then what does the phrase leading with democracy mean to you?
I can.
Yeah, you
can go first.
I can get us started. So I thought about this question from not only a higher ed leader lens, but also from the lens of being a leader at an HBCU. And when I think about the purpose of an HBCU, was founded to expand opportunity, and it's been engines for democracy, civic leadership, and enhancing social mobility. And democracy and education are really intertwined, deeply connected. And I really think, because of some of the things we've been talking about this week, is that some of the polarization and some of the distrust, we are charged to develop students who are able to have civil discourse, who are able to be critical thinkers. And being that type of a leader helps our students feel seen, feel heard, empowered, and be able to have these rich conversations that we need. And being that type of leader makes me be more collaborative, transparent, and making sure that I'm operating within shared governance.
Yeah, I'll add to that a bit. I completely agree with Dimetri. You know, we in higher education have a responsibility to model the way in this work, and not only for our students, but with our faculty and staff as well. And so if we're not walking the talk, who's going to do that? And so I feel passionate about leading with democracy every day in my role, as a privilege to serve in my role, and hope that I attempt to model the way for our students, faculty, and staff in a way that we model democracy for our communities and for our region beyond the institution.
I think I can add to that. I was going to say about how key education is to democracy. I think if you don't have an educated public, you won't have a functioning democracy. And campuses have always kind of served as a place to have those dialogues and be able to discuss how important our governance is to our people. So I think that universities serve that unique role, and that just highlights how important they are.
I mean, when I think of leading with democracy, I really do think of someone that's going to put the people that they serve first. I don't think that they should ever be an afterthought. So if you're approached with a decision, I think it's okay for you to say, hold on, take a second and go talk to your team, talk with the people that you serve so that you're making a decision that benefits everyone, especially during these hard times. I think that you are a single individual in a single position, but you are also the people. And the more that you put that into practice, the easier it's going to be for you to model the way moving forward.
We live in an increasingly global world, and yet we are experiencing more social isolation. And so I am concerned, right, that we have a society which is very comfortable living in its tribes, right, and not understanding others. And so I think higher education has this unique opportunity, and I would actually say it's an obligation for higher education to step into those spaces between those isolated groups and bring people together. And so when we talk about cultivating those habits of democratic engagement for our students, we want them to be intellectually curious. We want them to practice what I would call civic responsibility, this whole caring for others. Somehow we have forgotten how to care about other people and suspend that judgment and see the humanity in others. And so we also want students to practice what it means to engage in dialogue with people that they don't agree with. Our democracy depends on us being able to engage with others that we don't agree with. Our democracy depends on those engaging with those that we disagree with, if I can say it that way. If I can just conclude, so often we think that when there's disagreement, it's a sign of failure for our community. Even in higher ed, we want everybody to agree. But I think disagreement and being able to engage across difference and disagreement is actually the healthy sign of a community, of what a true community is. And so I think higher ed has a critical role in that.
I have to weigh in. I agree with that so much. I tell my children all the time, I love that atmosphere so much in college that I never left, right? Because it was a place where you could make a mistake and it was forgiving and you can learn, and you just were exposed to all these different perspectives that maybe in your local community you never have. So we are on the right track, right? So we're going to start off our questions with Sterhlyng and Isaac. Higher education, we talk a lot about creating cultures of belonging and making sure that students feel that this is a place for them where they can do all these things, experiment, learn, and grow. So as a student, what does it mean for you to be in a learning environment that has a culture of belonging?
For me personally, I think it is important that each leader on our campuses recognize that every student that walks by you on the day-to-day basis makes up the student body. So you serve the student body, and you do often kind of look at it as a group, but you need every individual student to make up that group that you serve. So I think it is important that these leaders on our campuses engage with students outside of controlled, facilitated environments. So outside of classrooms, outside of meetings, I think it's important for them to realize that, it's important for us to be seen outside of that classroom setting. So for me personally, when Dr. Phillips comes up to me and I'm giving a tour, it's important for them to see that our faculty recognize that we are a part of the student body. So in lack of better terms, it's just, let me see what I wrote down. It just makes us feel seen. So even the smaller interactions with leaders on campus, it really does make us feel seen, and it makes me want to do better. It makes me want to perform better as a student, knowing that I'm being seen by the leaders that I go to school for,
Yes.
I think piggybacking off of that, making sure that every student's voice is heard and they have that opportunity to share it. I mean, even if a student doesn't engage that much in classes or extracurriculars, I think they still deserve to have a voice. So we need to be reaching out to all groups of students, no matter their politics, who they are, where they come from. And I think we just need to make sure that every student has a voice and an opportunity to share their perspective and how they think they can change the universe to be a better place.
Thank you. And Dr. Horner, how does creating a culture of belonging contribute to both democratic engagement and student success?
And they did an amazing job and stole some of my answers, but thank you guys. When you build this foundational culture of a sense of belonging, it becomes part of who you are as an institution and part of your mission. And we are intentional about creating spaces for students so that they know that they are heard, they are seen. Something that came to mind, and I was talking to the gentleman earlier at the table, is that we had to, as a university, think differently about creating that sense of belonging because we thought we figured it out in some ways. And then as we looked a bit deeper, we found that we were missing a niche of students who are student parents. And we thought that we captured them in commuter students. And once we really dug into our student parents and asked them, what do you need to feel that you are a part of this community? They opened up. And so now we have brought those students in because now they feel seen, they feel heard. And it's really that opportunity when you feel that sense of belonging, you are more likely to get engaged and have those conversations with other peers and your faculty and your staff. And that sense of belonging allows us an opportunity to holistically educate a student, thinking about that student personally, academically, civically. What does that student need? And by addressing that sense of belonging and making sure that they feel a part of our community, we enhance that.
Thank you. And so, Dr. Arensdorf, I'm on to you. So historically, higher education has been seen as a place to assist students in cultivating the skills necessary to engage in courageous conversations, which we know is essential to a democratic society. Still, even though the rhetoric says otherwise, we know it's important, right? So do you think that campuses are still places where people can disagree constructively? What do you think helps to foster that, and what do you think kind of gets in the way?
Well, we are higher education institutions are absolutely a place for constructive, difficult dialogue to take place. And if we can't model that and do that, I don't know if we're not equipped to model and do that, I'm not sure who might be better to do that. And so at Fort Hays State University, we have been an ADP organization or a member since 2004. So we were a very early adopter of the American Democracy Project. And that has been an exceptional vehicle for us to engage in difficult conversations and have difficult dialogue and involve our student body, our faculty, and our staff in these difficult conversations. I was sharing with a colleague this morning that we have ebbed and flowed in our ability to bring people along, and we're because of Isaac's leadership and a couple of faculty members that are coordinating with him, we are hitting a really unique peak of involvement with ADP at our campus. And so I would strongly encourage you to look at that as a model for engaging your campuses in these difficult conversations. And I'd like to give Isaac an opportunity at some point during the panel to share an example of a difficult conversation that we had this fall that was led by students. And it's a powerful example of how getting students, faculty, and staff involved can help make us better as a democracy as a whole. So Isaac, would you mind sharing just briefly about that example?
That'd be
I think you
great.
probably know which one I'm talking about.
So after Charlie Kirk's terrible assassination on a college campus, just campuses across the nation were very tense, as I'm sure you all very well know. And so ADP worked with the college Republicans and the Young Democrats to bring student representatives together to have a conversation about it. So we had 2 people from the Young Democrats, 2 people from college Republicans, me from American Democracy Project, and then 1 representative from our student government. And it was an excellent situation because we were able to calm down the situation, and we were able to bring people together in a moment where there was so much partisan hate and partisan fighting that I'm just so blessed that we were able to have this unique opportunity to foster a conversation, foster dialogue, so people could find common ground, because not surprisingly, there's a lot of common ground on these issues. There's very, very few people who would have supported something like that, and I think we can just find a lot of common ground there, and we were able to actually find success in that. We had about 80 students attend, which for a campus where we only have about 1,000 in-person students, we're very lucky to be able to do that. And that's something we want to continue in the future and kind of foster that deliberative dialogue and make sure we're able to have these peaceful conversations as opposed to a lot of the aggressive ones you see online especially.
And quite frankly, what we might be doing wrong is not involving our students enough in these conversations. They're the ones that showed the courage to come together, and our faculty and staff and administrators learned so much from their courageous conversation. So thank you, Isaac, for leading that. Thanks for letting me share that example.
So Isaac, may I ask a follow-up?
Yes.
So what do you think was integral to you all, the student leaders, being able to facilitate that? Like, what were the conditions, or what prepared you for leading that type of engagement?
I think that it was really important that it was just student-focused. I think that really helped everyone be more open and more honest about their opinions about the situation and have a more constructive dialogue. I think because it was just an all-student panel, there weren't really any faculty involved. It was a largely student audience. We were able to have that conversation and be able to talk about that without, even if there aren't external pressures that the faculty are intending to bring, students often feel that because there are adults in the room, they don't want to mess up and say something wrong. So I think it really helps to just have those student-centered conversations.
Okay, thank you. So we also have Dr. Phillips. I'm going to ask you about how do you think faculty and institutional leaders can work with students to identify the skills that are needed to engage in civil discourse? And once we've identified them, how do we really provide the opportunities for them to develop these skills?
That's a heavy question.
Okay.
So I'll take this one chunk at a time. The first thing I would mention is that we must partner with students in the work, right? We have to ask students, what is it that they need, right? And when we do that, we give students the opportunity to be reflective and to become self-aware. And you really need to be self-aware if you're going to engage in sort of civic engagement. What I would say is that at Missouri State, public affairs is our mission. It's state statute. We are a public affairs university. And so beginning with our first year seminar, right, through the senior year experience, if we're talking about undergraduates, we try to build in those three values, those three pillars of public affairs, with ethical leadership, cultural competence, and community engagement. And so that is very much in line with practicing democracy. And I would say as part of our ADP commitment, because we also are an ADP institution, every fall we have a public affairs conference, and we invite students in to help us plan that conference. What I will say is that a generation or two removed from our typical undergraduate student, it is very important to hear from them what they believe they need to make a difference in the world. Because that's our purpose, is to help students who will be graduates to make a difference in the world. But we also don't do it alone. We do it with our colleagues in student affairs. And so when we partner with student affairs and they come to a meeting with the deans or whatever, and they are sharing what they are hearing and experiencing with students outside the classroom, we can build better experiences. In the end, the goal is to help students practice. We want to have a psychologically safe space where students practice before they get out and have those tougher conversations in the workplace or as community leaders. So I encourage you all, whether it's deliberative dialogues, I know some universities call it conversation circles, it is very important that we provide opportunities for students to practice, and we probably need to practice along with them.
So this will be a whole nother panel, but the concept around psychologically safe spaces, I think is something that we probably need to explore a little bit more, because what's safe to boomers and Xers and may be different. What does that look like? But thank you for bringing that up. So Isaac, talk to us a little bit about, as a student, when do you, what needs to exist for you to feel heard by the faculty, by the administration? Because we talk a lot about student voice, but in your position and your peers, what do you think we really need to do to make you feel like that we're really listening?
Yeah, I think something that really helps is seeing the administrators among the student body, like just seeing them interact with people, seeing them in the student union and stuff like that. I've been lucky that Dr. Arensdorf, I've seen her at a few student club meetings, and that's really helpful, I think. It makes it feel like people actually, the administration is paying attention to students and making sure they feel valued. I think something else that I've noticed, especially for ADP, is that, the administration really institutionally supports us and makes sure we're able to have those events that are needed on campus. And I think that really helps, even just vocal support, showing that we support what you're doing. We think you're doing good work and we value your work on campus. I think that's just really important.
Okay, perfect. And so Sterhlyng, the other side of the coin, what does it look like when your students are feeling disconnected from the institution and from being heard?
So I'm fortunate enough to serve in many roles where I actually get to survey our students regarding similar capacities. So a lot of things that I've heard from our student body at Missouri State is it's not a matter of them feeling disconnected, it's a matter of the decisions that are being heard from the student body not being conveyed back to them. So things that are being accepted, things that are being changed are not being conveyed back to the student bodies. So I don't think they're going to want to continue trying to contribute or giving their contributions to leadership at Missouri State University if they don't think that it's being heard. So I feel like there are a lot of ways that we could go about effectively letting the students know that we are in fact listening to you and decisions that are being brought to us are being made. So for instance, in admissions, in our admissions office at Missouri State University, we can text all of our students, just check up on them. So I feel like we could take kind of that similar content and maybe text policy updates to our students. Or regarding transparency, we have Senate, but students that don't go to Senate, that could still benefit from hearing what's going on in Senate regarding those policy changes that may or may not affect them. I feel like they still need to be made aware of that in some capacity. So even if we just put signs on campus that say, hey, you asked, we answered, here's the policy change around campus, I just feel like that helps in the capacity of transparency as well as letting them know that we actually are listening to you. So it's just getting that back to the student body, I feel like will be really helpful as far as decision making and letting them know that they are in fact being heard.
And you gave us a couple of different ways. So you said we could text, we could put up signs, we can invite people to meetings. So we have plenty of options, right, to improve our communication circle.
And I want you to notice that we were all taking notes
Yeah.
as you were sharing. So.
Because they were good points, right?
They were.
Okay, so Sterhlyng and Isaac, back to you all. So when we think about dialoguing across differences, so there's lots of tension that's happening in all spaces, like everywhere, right now. So in your roles, what do you think, how would you describe respectful disagreement? Like, what does that look like among your peers?
I took a political science course last year, and of course that could spark a lot of courageous conversations. I feel like there are really two objectives when it comes to having those courageous conversations. In our classroom specifically, it was a controlled environment, being controlled by the instructor, the professor, he was facilitating it. Those two objectives, I feel like number one is to fill the room with as many opinions as possible. I think that's number one. So the professor would ask us the questions, but we were never allowed to direct our answers toward another student. So he would absorb all of the answers and ask follow-up questions himself, and that just gets all the conversations and ideas flowing in our students' head, which leads us to number two. Number two, I think, is allowing time for our students to really understand those other adverse opinions. So number one, really get those opinions flowing inside of the room, followed by number two, allowing time for them to really understand one another's standpoints and where they are coming from. Having that controlled environment, I think, aids in the classroom, of course, but I think they can take that from the classroom setting and apply it to the outside of classroom setting, if you will. So being in the controlled environment, you gain a lot of skills being able to have those courageous conversations. And then when a courageous conversation sparks and you're not in a controlled environment, you still have the skills that you gained from being in the controlled environment that you can apply to the uncontrolled environment.
I think something else is on environments, just really also having a safe environment where people don't feel like they're going to be attacked or ridiculed for their opinions. If someone feels like they're in the vast minority, they're likely not going to speak up, and that just makes it much harder to have dialogue. So I think having a safe environment as well, where people feel comfortable talking, and it's like adding to that controlled environment where you're able to control, have a safe, fostering conversation.
I think, there's plenty of conversation out there about AI. One way we could encourage the use of AI, since we know students are going to use it anyway, right, is to practice with AI, right? Having that conversation back and forth where you get a different opinion, and then you get to practice in that space how you would respond if someone were to come with a different viewpoint. So I know some folks want to run away from it, but it has very practical purposes, reasons to use it.
Yeah, I am a slow adopter to AI, but that is one way that I actually use it, like make this nicer, or make this sassier, or make this, more concise. So I totally agree.
Yeah, one of the things I would just add that at Fort Hays State, and I know many of you are deploying programs online as well, and so we've really had to think critically about how to have those courageous conversations in online classrooms as well, and what do those safe spaces look like, and how that's different than bringing folks together in a physical classroom. And so that's really challenged us. We've been in the online space for well over 25 years, and yet we're still grappling with how do we deploy our online classrooms in a way that allow for these difficult conversations. We do not have that perfected, and yet we're utilizing AI and some things like that to encourage students to practice, but also our faculty to practice as well. So just wanted to add that briefly to this dialogue as well.
So our next set of questions were really continuing to build on skill development and opportunities and experiences for students to develop these skills. But do y'all have some examples of things that you have done on your campus? I know you spoke, Sterhlyng, around in a course. But are there other things that you have done on your campuses as administrators, faculty, as students to help, just encourage people to participate in these types of conversations?
I can start on that. In addition to the event about Charlie Kirk, we have in our student union a whiteboard where ADP puts a question up and it encourages students to just have a dialogue with that question. We try to avoid super partisan topics about specific policies. Like for an example, we had a question a couple months ago that's just what concerns you about the rise of artificial intelligence. I think that's just a really good way to phrase it. I think that really helps people learn about how to engage in these difficult topics in a way that's not prompting them to be combative. We also make sure to regulate that board, make sure people aren't just being angry and not having good dialogue. We're trying to make it so people are having fair conversations on it.
I just want to add to that really quick. I actually really like that idea just because I feel like when we're having those courageous conversations, we get so caught up in listening to respond in lieu of listening to understand. So when we're writing it on the whiteboard and all you can do is look at it, you have no choice but to understand where each other is coming from. Rather, if you're speaking to, let's say Isaac and I are speaking about a courageous topic, it's hard to really understand one another when we're looking to come back at one another. Like, I have a great response for what he just said, instead of, hey, that's a really good point. I should sit back and think about that. Maybe it can change the way I'm thinking or alter my mindset prior to what it was before entering this conversation. So I think that's a really great way to facilitate those courageous conversations in a way to get that out without it ending up in an argument per se.
I only wanted to add that you mentioned earlier about feeling safe. And one of the things that we had to shift, because we found that when we were attempting to have some of the difficult and courageous conversations with our students, they were quiet, silence. And we were doing most of the talking. And what we found out is that they didn't necessarily feel safe enough to open up. And it is because one of the reasons that we discovered is because we are inviting them to our spaces. We shifted that. We go to them. We go into their dorm and we sit in their commons areas. We go have lunch with them. I started something called Beyond the Books, and it's just a chance for us to sit down where they are in some of their spaces, and then students started opening up. Students started understanding that we really do want you to be able to engage in these types of conversations, and we want you to feel safe when you're doing that. And part of that happened because we went to where they are, and that is something that really shifted the tide for us on campus.
I'm just going to double down. It's both an invitation, right? But it's also listening. We spend, right, the professionals on the campus spend a whole lot of time talking and not enough time listening. And so when we model that, right, I think it does create space for students to join with us in creating the university where they will thrive and learn.
Yeah, it's about meeting people where they are, and we've heard that through multiple examples here. I also think that we have a responsibility as administrators certainly to meet our faculty where they are. And these are tough conversations for our faculty to have the courage right now to have with our students and to create those spaces that they feel safe. And so one of the things that we're working on at Fort Hays for this fall, I'm working closely with our Faculty Senate leadership to open up some dialogue opportunities for our faculty to talk about the issues they're facing, the fears they're facing, some of the courageous conversations they want to have but are not sure they should have, given the current environment, and creating a safe space for them so that they can serve as an example in our classrooms with our students. So hopefully that works. Maybe I can come back next year and talk about that, but just being really deliberate about meeting people where they are.
And I don't know if anyone's named it specifically, but faculty development is key. Well, and faculty and staff development,
yes.
right? And we talk about understanding how to engage across the generations, and especially if we're talking about onboarding employees. But we, again, faculty, staff, we all need continuous development so that we know that we are fulfilling our end of the equation.
Yes.
So it's everyone. We can't have these things happening in isolation or pockets. Otherwise, we have one area that's kind of elevating, and then the others are stagnant. So making this something for everyone. And I think I'm a former diversity educator, and I used to always tell my students that safety was something that was important, but comfortability not necessarily, right? And so helping also to understand the difference in being comfortable and being safe. Because safe is what we're always striving, because we want people to share, but the learning happens when we are forced to be uncomfortable and to challenge, which is what you said about the whiteboard and the conversation, right? So not being afraid to be uncomfortable, which I think is risky in today's society, to be vulnerable in that space. So I applaud all of you all for leading in that space. So Isaac and Sterhlyng, you're still in the hot seat. We don't have, in my role, I don't have a lot of opportunities to engage with students. And so we want to know, like, inquiring minds want to know. You're too young to understand what that is. But believe me, it was a thing. And so we want to know, like, what is the one thing that you wish university leaders understood about students today?
I can take that. I think something I wish that university leaders understood is that I think students pay attention a lot. So I think, I was thinking about this earlier, when there's policy changes or when there's different budget allocations, I think explaining why those things happen to the students would be very helpful. It also would feel like they have a closer connection with the administration when they know why they're making these decisions. Because I think in a lot of these situations, even if the students don't like it, the administration probably has a good reason to be making those decisions. But I think the students wouldn't understand that if they don't have a reason why. Like, if state policy is forcing you to cut budgets, many students don't pay attention to the state budget, so they wouldn't know that. They just think you're raising their tuition or cutting the budget just to make more money. So I think if you explain that further, either in like an announcement, email post, or whatever we were talking about earlier, I think that would be really helpful to students.
I also just kind of want to piggyback. I think it's important that it comes from the higher ups as well. They're being directly affected by it, and they objectively cannot change what they're being pressured by, but I think it would change the student perspective a lot and allow them to be more receptive if it came directly from administrative and leadership. I've had a couple of times where, especially revolving the D&I situation, where we would have administrators come and talk to us about it, and that really did alleviate a lot of the stress regarding it, because prior to them coming to explain what really was going on, all you had to bank your ideas off of was what was being spread around campus. Regardless of who that was coming from, that's all I had, or that's all we had in our minds at the time, prior to administration actually coming to explain, here's objectively what it is. And I just think that helps, like Isaac said, a lot more than just hearing it in the Placer Student Union, if you will.
I was going to say on that, I think if students don't hear anything, they're going to assume the worst reasoning. So if you don't tell them something, they're just going to dislike you even more.
Okay. And what do you all wish that students knew about your roles or decisions being made at your levels?
I'll just say briefly, one is that there are complicated situations that we are managing. I'll say that. But the student voice matters.
Yeah.
The student voice matters, so keep speaking up.
Well, I have to just say, I had the words complex and your voice matters. So, ditto. We did not prepare together either. So.
And I had the same, so there we have it.
Okay. And then, so our final question is just that for Isaac and Sterhlyng, you're going to bring it home. How can students demonstrate agency and find their voice in the life and governance of campus? Like, what do you think we need? And I know you can't speak for all students, but just when you think about it, like, what do we need to do in our roles to make sure that you feel like you're a part of the life of the campus?
I think for the first part of the question, to really demonstrate agency, I think that our students do need to join the student body government. The student body government is the official voice of the student body. So that's number one. For number two, what do we need to make this possible for them to find their governance on campus? I do feel like that kind of falls in the lap of the student body leadership. So the student body president, student body vice president, all of their directors and chiefs, I feel like it kind of falls in their lap. One of the big things we're working on now with our new leadership is implementing policy in plain language. I feel like when you think of policies and when you think of all the intricacies that revolve around policies and policy changes, I feel like that is a deterrent to our students. When we pull the surveys of why students aren't joining the student body government, it is because they just don't understand it. They are kind of deterred by the seriousness of it. So I do feel like it kind of falls in our lap to make it so we pull the intricate level of communication from our Senate meetings and make them a lot easier to be understood. I feel like it is hard to ask clarifying questions about something that you do not understand. So it is difficult to ask those questions if you do not fully understand it, but if you were to fully understand it, a lot more students would find their voice and have a voice in asking questions. Whereas before, if it stays in that intricate level of being spoken to students, those questions are going to go unasked, those voices are going to go unheard. Isaac, do you have anything you want to
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying. I think something else is just making as many opportunities as possible for students to have their voice heard. I think a lot of times, just people are busy and can't attend certain events, so just give them as many opportunities, either online or as many in-person events, just to let them express their voice and their opinions.
Okay, thank you so much. So can we thank this panel for everything that they... So we have about a little less than 10 minutes to take questions from the audience. So if you all have, if there's anyone who has questions, there's a microphone over here and over here.
Well, can I just make one comment?
Sure.
Back at the spring ADP meeting, Sandy Pope, who's at Salisbury University, reminded me that regional public universities are the public square. Right? We serve as a public square where we should be inviting everyone in and where we should be having those debates, those courageous conversations, understanding that we're not all going to agree. And so that image of RPUs as the public square resonates with me. And I know some of our campuses, we might not be able to invite people onto campus, but then it is upon us, it's our responsibility then to go out, right? So just when you think about the old-time public square. Metaphorically, what does that look like for higher ed today? And I'm sorry, Frank.
I have a question for our panel, but first wanted to thank everyone for your encouragement of this work, for your engagement with the American Democracy Project, and for sharing your experiences with us today. Obviously, I'm so proud of our students, and you're doing amazing work on your campuses. Would just love to hear from both of you as leaders on your campuses, as leaders in AASCU's American Democracy Project. What do you think are the tangible skills that you have developed as a result of this work that will take you beyond your time as a student, success in your life after college?
I've learned in quite a few capacities on campus to take a second to respond if I need it. If I maybe don't quite understand a question, I could ask them to rephrase it. If I don't quite agree with someone, we've been able to spare the disagreements and the bickering and the arguments because we take time to really understand, okay, what are we looking at and what is the end goal we are trying to get to? Is the arguing going to advance that goal? If so, then we can do that. But I find that arguing doesn't really direct any goal that we are trying to achieve. So just taking the time to really sit there and think about it before responding has really helped me in a lot of capacities on campus, and I do believe that it's going to aid in my future job prospect as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, learning how to disagree, learning how to talk with someone in a calm manner, which I think so many people our age are lacking these days. But also, I mean, just public speaking and being able to talk to people you've never met before. In high school, I was pretty not involved with everyone, but I've forced myself to in college. I'm so glad I did, because ADP has given me so many amazing opportunities to meet so many people. And I think just, I'm so grateful to be here.
We're glad to have you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
So I want to echo the thanks and very much for everybody for being here today. And as a former high school social studies teacher, all the things that you're saying are exactly the work that I was trained to do 30 plus years ago, and why so many of us got into whether it's K-12 or higher education. I do want to kind of puzzle out the piece with creating safe spaces, because obviously it is vital, and I very much appreciate the distinction between comfort and safety. I think that's a really important piece. But while we will talk about safety for students, there's also the safety for faculty. And what we're seeing right now, I think, is a lot of faculty who are scared to push back if a student says something that is inflammatory or derogatory or attacking another student, because of the concern that they're then going to be accused of quelling free speech, that they're going to be accused of not supporting diverse viewpoints, et cetera. Diverse in quotation marks oftentimes there. And I'm wondering if you've seen that dynamic on your campus. And I will say, I'm from California, so we're very fortunate to be in a state that at this point still is generally protective of tenure and academic freedom and all the things that some states are really attacking at this point. And I'm wondering what tools you've seen, what experiences you've had, if there's university-wide policies or approaches that you're advocating to support creating protections for faculty and administrators and staff to do the work of creating those safe spaces.
Dr. Ahrens? Yes.
So I'll share just briefly about some things yes, our faculty are experiencing that. I'm experiencing that as an administrator. I can't imagine all of us in the room aren't experiencing that on our campuses in some way, shape, or form. One of the things that we're working to do, and I mentioned it briefly, I'm working closely with our faculty senate. This is a very tangible thing that we're hoping to have come to fruition of this next year. working with our faculty senate leadership. The provost office is working directly with our faculty senate leadership to bring in a facilitator who will do college by college listening sessions this fall to better understand what are those faculty concerns by college, because we know they're going to be different in different areas of the institution. That's been my experience thus far. From those listening sessions, then we're going to figure out, do we need to deploy new policy? Do we need to revise policy? Do we need, what protections, what additional protections that we can put in place will we try to put in place? And that will happen in the spring. So we're just starting that work to be very intentional about actually helping faculty understand what are the parameters as we understand them, what are their concerns and fears, and what are they already doing in their own classrooms to have those difficult conversations, sharing amongst one another, and then deploying policy, updating policy as we need to at the institution.
The only thing I would add is that building relationships is key. And so as much as possible, I'm engaging with faculty, and so that they know that I am accessible and that I am supportive. So that's number one. Number two is that I have said that we take a developmental approach, right? There's no one strike and you're out. And so if an issue comes up, we're going to explore what the issue was. But again, if a faculty member needs tools to better engage in the classroom or engage differently in the classroom, that's the developmental work we will do with faculty. And so that's what I communicate. It's a work in progress, and it's very challenging times. But again, I have office hours for faculty. Faculty can come, 30-minute meeting throughout the semester, throughout the academic year. I have, in the summer too, I have office hours, so they know they can come directly to me and share their concerns, and we'll work together on getting through it.
The one thing that I will add that we did is we created a space where faculty can anonymously share their concerns, and that is helping us build our toolkit for the training that's happening through the Center for Teaching and Learning, because though I may say that I'm creating a safe space and you can come to me, that faculty may not be at that point yet. And so I still want to make sure that he or she can come and share that information, and then we use that information to better equip our faculty members to support our students and one another within the classroom.
And we're almost at time, so we're going to end this just where we started. This is important work that we're doing, that you all are engaging in. It's hard work, but nothing in life worth having is ever easy. And so I just want to applaud everybody in the room, in the space, for being here, engaging in this conversation, being open to learning new things, questioning the way that you're approaching the work that you're doing right now, and encouraging others to be a part of this very, very meaningful work. We can't survive without us doing this and digging in, right? Democracy is not something that is a once in a lifetime, like you do it once and it's over. It is something for, I think it was John Lewis who said, every generation has to do their part. And so, and our part is helping this generation to identify what their part is. So thank you to the panelists for engaging in this conversation, for you for listening and thinking about this, and for just holding the flag and keeping this moving. So just keep pushing, and thank you all very much.